is Shaughnessy, and this is my podcast called Samples of Science Cuisine, and I would like to introduce today's guest.
You start out by telling me about yourself and like your qualifications.
As far as my professional
Yeah.
functions, so I had a bachelor's of science degree, which I received at ESF, SUNY ESF, and then I have a master's of education, which I received at University of Buffalo.
Okay. How was your experience in college?
As far as academically,
Socially, anything you want to elaborate on?
well, academically, I think there were a lot of resources available if you were, struggling on a particular course. Like I remember I went to the tutoring center for Calc 2. I was taking a Calc 2 class, and that was very helpful. So I guess that would be a positive experience. And social interaction, because ESF was just a smaller school. Like my class sizes were 25 students, so 25 to maybe 30. So it was very small. Working as a science major, obviously I had to do a lot of labs, organic chemistry, organic 1 and 2. Physics, I actually took physics over at SU because that's SUNY at ESF, the right next to Syracuse University. So that experience was a little different than the experience at ESF because it was a much larger lecture hall, and I think there were probably 800 students in our lecture hall. So that, I guess, I was just, you were basically known by a social security number, so it wasn't really a name and basis. That was a little bit the bigger school, I think.
So that's an interesting perspective because you attended both a small school with smaller class sizes and a bigger school with much larger class sizes. What would you say were like the benefits and the negatives of a bigger class size?
So the smaller class size, I think, is more, it's personable, and you're able to have access to the instructor, right then and there. If you have questions, understand something, that communication is always there. And I think in a smaller setting too, just, conversing with other students, if you're working on something and helping, each other out, the group work, all those are big pluses. At the SU, I was sitting in that lecture hall. So I had to take physics at high school. So I had to take my freshman year, and they didn't operate it. So yes, absolutely. Great courses you wanted to take outside of that, you can take at SU. So, I really had issues with the lecture. I had a professor, and I'm not putting, SU down, but I had a physics professor, and he's on stage with a microphone, and he had all these, setups and inviting all these physics experiments and trying to show us how things work. 90% of them never worked. So that was kind of, I didn't have a great experience with that. And not all, experiments work. I mean, that as well as I do. So it's, it's just, trying to figure out why something happened and, so on and so forth. So the labs were, so that was lecture. So that wasn't really, I sat in the back, and there were, like I said, 8 other students in there. So I didn't really, I met a couple people in my lab. The labs were smaller, obviously, but that I connected with, and we worked together on labs. But then I had difficulty accessing the professor. Like, I could go talk to him once in a while, but it always seemed like his office hours was really busy. There were a lot of students in there, so it was almost impossible to set something up. Where at ESF, it was much easier. Like, we just stay after class, and the professor would be in another class, but stay after the call. So yeah, definitely, I guess the smaller setting was more positive than the bigger setting. And then in UB is a big school too, but working on my master, like my class size, because I was a graduate student, was much smaller. So that experience was similar to doing ESF. It was a little smaller class.
Yeah, I remember when I toured UB and it felt like a cement city. And I told my mom I could not go there. I can't do it.
I'm with you.
So why did you decide you said you majored in biology in college?
Yes.
Why did you decide on that?
Well, it was weird because I didn't start out, I started out as a bio major, but then I kind of gravitated toward environmental science, environmental engineering. So I guess I was all over the place as far as deciding what I wanted to do. I was thinking about a wildlife official or an econ officer, working with, so doing research with, the wolves of Yellowstone. I mean, I was all over the place. With the biology, I guess, growing up in the Adirondacks and living in the mountains, hiking in the mountains, kayaking on the rivers and the lakes, and that experience and the camping, I think, drew me toward the sciences, especially biology, as far as the environmental part of it. And I'm just really curious about how things worked, in the human body. So I was fascinated with biology. I just think those experiences really, drove me toward that.
So you think experiences played a big role in why you decided on your major?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So what did you like? Because you said you gravitated more towards the environmental aspect of biology. What are the other aspects, and why did you not enjoy them as much?
I think I wasn't really into, and this is probably one word I too. I mean, I still had to take, genetics and, body systems, everything that like an AP biology course would be. But then when I started to get into my major more, I was taking courses that like limnology, and, dendrology, study trees. So, these other things came into play that sparked my interest, which is more, it's still biology, but, I'm in a lake looking at the macro and micro invertebrates and just that outdoor setting, hands-on experience. I enjoyed a lot. And then, some of the things we would go through, I enjoyed the genetics too. I shouldn't say I didn't enjoy the genetics, but I think I wanted to see more application with that. And, I took a couple of other courses because it was a environmental type school on, like policy and how policy works in environmental fields. And that was interesting, but that probably was my least favorite because I didn't see myself going in that direction into politics. So.
Yeah. So you said that you did your master's at UB. What did you get your master's in again?
Just a master's of education. So I did a fast track. So I went, I had actually it was a biochem major at ESF. My concentration was like a EFB was my major, what it was, environmental forest biology, but it covered all the biology that, you would typically get as a bio major. It's just that the courses were more, diverse. And we took, you try to think. Yeah, the courses were definitely more diverse, but UB, the Masters of Education, I had to get in order to teach. But I didn't start out, I started out in the private sector working for an engineering firm as an environmental scientist. So I had already been working after I graduated for 5 years at an engineering firm. And I guess what changed my mind was, well, first of all, everyone in my family works in the private sector, so they were always kind of pushing private sector. And, you're not going to make any money in the public sector, even though it's not all about money, but they said you're going to have chances to grow in the private sector. So I stayed with the engineering firm for a few years, and then my wife now, I was dating at the time. She was a teacher. She had been teaching for 2 years. She was in her second year teaching, and both of her parents were teachers. So they kind of talked me into switching careers. So I was probably 24, 25. And then I decided to go into teaching. So then I went to UB and I finished my master's in like a year and a half to get my certification. So all I had to take were education books because I already had all the hardcore sciences and math. So I didn't need anything else. Just the certification for my master's, but my master's of education.
Yeah, I had heard about that fast track before that you could just take, because a lot of teachers, they have something like that here too, where you can take education courses along with your major, and then you can graduate with your teaching certification on top of like your major and your minor if you want to.
Yep. A lot of work, but
yeah. When you worked at the engineering firm, you said it was environmental engineering?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about like what that entailed?
So my job was I worked my way up to a project manager's position, but I worked on contaminating sites. So I worked on a lot of demolitions of old buildings. So the psych center actually was one of them in Buffalo. They demoed that. But I was certified in an asbestos lead abatement. I was also certified in soil contaminants, whether industrial, residential, or commercial. So industry, if there was a spill or something happened, DEC would be there on site, but then they would subcontract with an environmental engineering firm to do a study of the area, and then basically come back with, what was found and what they should do. I would just basically give them recommendations of what they need to do with the cleanup. And it's not that I didn't enjoy what I did. I enjoyed it a lot. But, I was getting to a point in my career where I was managing more projects at a very young age. And there was definitely growth there for me. But then I started traveling more. And, that was my point at the time. He just got married. She said, have you ever thought about switching careers and getting into teaching or your degree as a teacher? So I was like, I never really thought of it. But then financially, I was going to take a huge pay cut, so on and so forth. But no, we're young. We're in our mid-20s, so we're going to do it. Might as well do it now. So then I just went ahead and jumped in with both feet, went at them. So, yeah. I hope I answered that.
You did. So with environmental engineering, going off what you said, how you go to like sites of contamination and like sample the soil and give them advice on how to contain the contaminants, or like an example of today's society would be like that train derailment that just happened in Ohio. Would environmental engineers be going to that site?
Yeah, they would eventually. Well, what happens is a lot of these companies, and I'm trying to think, was it Northrop? What was the name of the train?
I think it was something like that.
Yeah, but they have their own companies that they deal with. So they would hire, out of their company, for someone to assess it. Like the government has to send it to the EPA, which they did. And the EPA has to do an assessment and say, okay, this is what you need to do. And then the company would have to hire out a contractor, but for the contractor, as far as what work had to be done, soil needed to be sampled. They had to, look at what the tanks had, what the effects would be. They would have to hire, I would assume they would have to hire an environmental engineering firm. Every state's different, I think, depending on what the EP regulations are. But you would have to definitely take a look at the area. Are there any wetlands nearby? You would have to sample the soil. Then we'd have to take core samples of the soil. So you'd have to go like deep cores to see how far the penetration of the contamination went. So the whole area, they would have to map out where that contamination was and how far it went, and remedy it that way. But typically, I think they have their own. But then I'm not sure how that works, Sean. That EPA directs their own person to go in there, for a company to go in there to do that, or they just let the company that made the mess?
That's an interesting, it was an interesting perspective just to see how that would like work. Because it wasn't a lot in the news. They don't go into the details. So it was interesting for the students who listened to this interview for them to hear that perspective. Kind of switching gears a little bit. If you could go back and give your college self a piece of advice, what would you say?
Oh boy.
I got hard questions in here.
It's hard to say. I think if I look back on it now, I don't regret what I'm doing now. I love what I do, but I find it very rewarding. But I also think back to, I probably could have got, I feel like I could have got pre-med. I could have maybe done something in the medical field. But I think at that time in my life, I wasn't really at that stage or felt driven enough to do that. I think my focus was somewhere else. But I think if you're like, warrior, right? Then different things spark your interest.
Yeah.
So, something happened there where, like I said, I changed career and straight, or not big swimming, but early on in my other career. And again, I'm glad I did. I love what I do now, but I also love what I did. So, yeah, application, applying yourself, making use of resources, tutors, contact with your professors. I did all of those things. If I was struggling on something or I didn't understand something, I made sure I made appointments or got into study rooms. And I think all of that is the support that college students need success. And I think that's it. Yeah, I think I answered that.
You did. So now switching to teaching, what does a typical day look like for you as a high school biology teacher?
So after I had my coffee in the morning, well, I think you never stop reflecting. I reflect in the morning when I get up, and then I'm sitting there drinking my coffee about the day, and then I come to school, and you've seen the plans I've written. I'm very, structured, and I want to make sure that I'm on my game for the students, because the students I have are great students. So I want to make sure that I have them set up structurally so that they're understanding the material that I teach. So yeah, I get up, so I reflect about the previous day. I reflect about what I'm going to be doing that day. Then I get to school, and I already, at the end of each school day, I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but at the end of each school day, I write out lesson plans. So I still doing a lesson plan book. And I start with the classes on the left-hand side, and then the day I write down, I warm up for the students, and I go through, what we're going to be discussing, what I'm going to be teaching, any activities we're going to do, any labs we're going to do, or there may have been a question from a student at the previous day, that I didn't answer right away. Let's wait on that because I want to explain this first before I explain that concept so that you better understand it. All those little things like jot in, if I noticed. I do put students' names down that asked them, or we're looking about this process, didn't understand it. Okay, I need to review this. And then when I get through all the classes, I see what was covered, what I didn't cover. So I always overplan. So overplan meaning I have so much that I could get through in that period. If the students are comfortable, we'll get through it fairly quickly. I could continue moving through it. But if they're struggling at some point, then I'll slow down. And then at the end of the day, I'll do my plans for the next day. And then I'll just either add or delete certain things that we already did, or, maybe something different that we're going to discuss. And then when I drive home, I reflect on what happened during the day. What kids were struggling, what they might be up with, and then, how I could remedy that, I guess, the following day, or how I could teach it.
So you base a lot of your teaching on the students' learning process?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because everybody's a different, not everybody's the same type of learner. So some are visual, some need to write information down, some are auditory, just listening, seeing. So I want to make sure that I'm covering all bases because I strongly believe every student learns. Some learn the same, but a lot of them learn differently. So if they're not understanding a concept or something, I'm going to teach it a different way.
Yeah. So what is, based on like your experience teaching and like perspectives you've gained from students and stuff like that, what is a commonly held belief about your role as a biology teacher that you passionately disagree with?
Okay, say that again.
What's a commonly held belief about your role as a biology teacher that you disagree with?
Something scientific, or
it can be anything, something scientific, something, if you want to go political, something like parents have said.
I pretty much stick to my player. I don't normally let anything get away or deter me from teaching. One thing I never do though is I never get my opinion on things. The students had a question about, this is a science class, but there is, it's in environmental laws and everything in politics. It can become very political. But I don't want to, when it comes to politics or, religion or anything like that, I'm not going to push my beliefs or my views on my students. So I am more of a, I'll listen, but I will get with my feelings about it.
Yeah.
Now, when I'm teaching, obviously, when I'm teaching ecology and, we're starting talking about CO2 levels, global warming, I'm not, I'm not like pushing it into their faces, but I am giving them the science. So the information, the data, and that's how I work. You as a scientist, so you follow the steps of the scientific method. There were numerous scientists that are now finding, these studies they've done, all this research, this data they collected, showing your warming and climate change and all that is happening. But I'm not someone who sits up here and says, "Oh, you don't believe in global warming, that you're wrong." Say with it. Like I present the material that way, and then they need to take that and in their learners and their spotters, they're absorbing this information, but they need to I'll help them, I guess, understand it. But ultimately, it's their decision, whatever their belief is their belief.
Yeah.
And I think is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
I hope I answered that.
You did. So would you say that you had, do you have students who, publicly disagree with you teaching the global warming portion?
I never heard anything from students about it. I do throw in points about, when a volcano erupts, the amount of CO2, sulfur dioxide, other things, entering the atmosphere and other greenhouse gases is, it's quite a bit. But there's actually this really good, I should send this to you. There's this documentary, I use a lot of PBS specials too for the kids. Not in class, but I'll send them clips and stuff on NOLA. And one is deciphering the weather patterns, which is tied to global warming and increase in temperatures. That was really good. But there's another one on the amount of CO2 that's used or produced and other greenhouse gases in the United States and throughout the world. It just gets into the ecology about, coral reefs and the bleaching of the coral reefs because, the water, actually our oceans are absorbing most of the heat. So now ocean temperatures are rising and it's killing the coral. There's, expunging their the algae that have a symbiotic relationship with it. So the corals die because of the temperature. But now they're finding, they've done a lot of research on that, and they actually have coral that are withstanding the temperatures, and this gets into natural selection, survival of the fittest. I'm kind of rambling on now.
You're fine.
But, you know, as I'm teaching it, though, I can show them a graph, and I can show them data, and I can show them. But when I'm teaching as a teacher. I'm not teaching as, trying to like shove it down their throat, so to speak, right? Wherever their beliefs are. My job is to give them the material and the information that is scientific to get that point across. If that makes sense. But I've never had a student ever question me or say anything to me or a parent call me or anything like that. Not only global warming, but evolution. And I base, you had my classes, I base everything on evolution. And I always tell the kids as I'm teaching it, and I lead it back to mutations and everything else. But I always make a point of telling the students, your beliefs are your beliefs. No one is here to change what you believe. But these are, this is the information I'm presenting to you, and this is why. So I kind of leave it like that. And even, some students are, if they're, whatever their religion is or whatever their belief system is, I think they appreciate that. But they never, ever, I don't even think, I'll be honest with you, I've never had a student question on anything like that. They seem more interested than they'll ask more questions.
Yeah.
But I pick where it is at. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's an interesting perspective. Do you find that because you teach honors biology and then AP biology as well, do you teach
Earth science?
Earth science?
I do Earth science.
Okay.
Labs, though. I'm not doing a lecture with the labs, I think.
Okay. Do you find that there's, what are the differences in the types of students and the types of learning from your honors biology and your AP biology class?
As far as type of student work?
Yeah.
As far as their work ethic and other things?
Yeah.
I would have to say the students that in the honors, but I'll get a mix of kids in the honors. I don't just take students that were accelerated. So a lot of it's parent requests. So I'll have parents contact the guidance office and request their child to put in my course, even if they were accelerated in middle school. And I have no problem with that. I just, I talked to parents and I said, I base it on work ethic. I don't base it on your test scores. I don't base it on any of that. I mean, you're here to learn. Not everybody does well on assessments. So I will take, like a heterogeneous group, right, on learners. Most of them are accelerated, but there's a small percentage it's that are in my classes that were accelerated, but they're in an honors course. And I'll be honest with you, they have a great work ethic. But I also have students that, well in tests, they don't struggle in school, but they're not doing the work. So I get both sides of that. Not only in honors, but also AP. So it doesn't matter if they're doing anything as far as their intelligence and everything. It's about their drive. But if they're not driven, they're not going to do as well, because if they're not doing the whole assignments or figuring things out, that's going to affect you great.
Yeah.
So, but the caliber of student that I'm getting in the honors, the AP, I would say, a big percentage of that, 85%, are very driven and hard work up students.
Yeah. So would you say, what is a characteristic that you admire in any student? What is a characteristic that you look for and admire in students?
Just that even some kids that, especially at the freshman level, have issues with organization. That's a learned thing. But you can kind of help them gets the point of the foundation where building success formative force. But the students that really stand out to me are, and it's funny because I use you as an example. I'm not just saying this, but I do. And use you as an example of a few other students I've had in the past, that the amount of time and effort put into your work is unbelievable. It's above and beyond. But I think those kids that, and you're at that, you and other students that I had are at that higher level, I think your learning ability and your drive. But then, another student, as long as they're doing their work, they're asking questions, they're taking notes, they're concerned about their grade. If they miss a day of school, when they come in the next day, or they send me a message to teams like Mr. Winters, what did we have to do for tomorrow? All those things are I think great for kids to be doing. What's that communication piece? Where I will have some students that don't do any of that. They're out of school for 3 or 4 days. They come back. They don't ask what they missed. They didn't ask me over email. They didn't, anything they had to make up. And they just had to come in and sit down. For the courses that I teach, I expect them to contact me and get the information they need and help them prepare. So I'm pretty firm with that, I think.
So students who take like an active role in their learning and advocate for themselves, you would say that's a good characteristic?
Most definitely, yes.
Okay, so now switching gears back to you, this is a hard question, but what do you think throughout your entire life, you can say academically, you can say personally, what was your biggest failure? And you can take your time to think about it if you need to.
So either academically or personally?
Whatever you want to say.
Well, I think I would go with, if I could go back a school, high school, I would have liked to have taken advantage of more courses. And when I did not, it's not that I didn't apply myself. I was always a student who, I was always the kid who had their bullet done. I was always the kid, that I didn't miss school or whatever. I reached, I didn't have a problem coming to school, but I was also, in athletics. So I had to be school for practices and things like that. But I also had a lot going on at home. I think I was 12 years old and my parents got divorced. So we moved from the school I was at to a new school. And then we lived with my mom, and my parents still had a great relationship, but it is what it is. Maybe that had an effect on me. I don't know, but I keep a very loving home. But I think my schooling, and I'm not blaming it just on that, but I think that may have affected it a little bit, to a point where I just wish I would have had a little more support, maybe from my parents and maybe even from my guidance counselor, steer in the right direction. So I think that's more of a personal mixed in with the academics. If I were to go back, I would definitely want to challenge myself more than I did. I just took the courses I had to take because that's what I was told I had to take. And that may, as far as, college there's and places I went, I bet probably would have spent a little long time looking at different schools, really knowing what I wanted to do. But yeah. Right.
So what is, flipping gears now, what's your biggest success?
Biggest success?
Mm-hmm.
I was a kid who, my mom worked, but she was saying she was a secretary. She never got a lot of money. My dad did well. He helped her, he didn't send money, whatever. But I, at a young age, started working. So I was, and so I'm going to school, playing sports, and working at the same time. So I would go to work and, really not that I needed the money, I had the money, you know, but to get it from my dad or whatever. But I think just, you know, well, I guess I didn't have to, but I did. But I would say my drive just to kind of push through things. And even with schooling, you know, what courses to take, you know, what things, you know, where should I go or what do I want to do? I think a lot of that, you know, I kind of figured out on my own. So I would consider that a success. You know, not sitting back and waiting for things to come to me. I went after that. You know, I didn't have someone pushing me to, okay, go here, do this, do that. But again, athletics helped me. Like played lacrosse for a couple of years. I went to Potsdam State actually for like to DSF. I transferred there after, and then my sophomore year I transferred there, played lacrosse at Potsdam. But that, I think, got my foot in the door. And then once I was in college, that's when I realized, okay, this is how this works. And then I took advantage of those, you know, the resources if I needed, so on and so forth.
So you really took your own initiative in going after the things you wanted?
Yes.
Okay.
Full step on it.
Would you say that that's like an important character trait that you had that you've relied on to get where you are today?
Yes.
Are there any other character traits that helped you get to where you are today?
I think social. I think I was always, you know, even as in high school, I had a lot of friends, but I was very, even as in the classes I was in, the teachers, I was kind of quiet. I was not that kid and was, you know, always hand up, answering questions or whatever. I just kind of sat there to fit all in. But I just think, you know, I just did things on my all. And I guess my drive is there. Like I was just driven to, you know, he did well. And I look at it this way, that I mean, I always tell my students this, you know, you're willing to push yourself. You know, you can do anything you want to do. I mean, there are some things you're not going to be good at. It is what it is. But the things that you are good at, you know what? Push yourself. You know, if it's something you want to do, just, you know, push yourself and do those things. But that's been a huge part of me. Like even when I teach, I'm here, you know, 25 minutes before school even starts, just doing stuff. And then I'm here till 4 o'clock at night, 5 o'clock at night sometimes. It's just still working my will, which is easier because my kids at college, but it's still, you know, I will leave until certain things get off, which can be a good thing, maybe a bad thing. I don't know.
So I had a question and now I lost it, but would you say that you said you transferred schools? So you transferred schools once. You said you went from Potsdam to ESF.
Yes.
And then you took classes in ESF and in you took like classes the colleges partnered together.
Oh, so SU, yeah.
Yeah.
They did physics over there, yes.
Okay. And then you went to masters for UB.
Yes.
Throughout that entire journey to where you are today, what is one lesson that you learned?
I just think, you know, persistence, right? And you just be pushing yourself to succeed. And I know there are a lot of people that get knocked down, and you know, I don't know. I think, you know, some people are instilled with that. Like if they get, you know, like a full grade or something doesn't work out right, or there's a, you know, I don't know, it could be anything, right? You always, you know, instead of kind of stand up, brush yourself off, and just, you know, get your thoughts organized, get focused again, and then just push forward. So don't be ever, you know, even if you get doors shut on you or you're told you can't do this, just, you know what, that's what you want to do, and it's something you want to, you know, see yourself really successful at, then it's the one. And I think, like I said, I didn't have a lot of really direction. Even when I was in college, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I was just going for a major. I just figured as a bio major, it would just open up a lot of doors as far as direction flight and all.
Yeah. I talked to a biology professor here, and she said that when I asked her about the students who were in biology as biology majors, she said they want to be in STEM, but they don't exactly know what direction they want to go yet.
Right.
And she said that's why they have the degrees, not degrees, like the areas of emphasis where you get for towards the end of your degree. You have the areas of emphasis. So like you said, you went into more environmental science. There is an area of emphasis here for like genetics and that type of stuff. So that's very interesting. Going back to when you said being social was really important, do you mean like making connections in college or like being social on campus? Can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, well, I think it's a number of things. I think it's, not trying to push my son to do this. It's getting involved, and he's a business major, marketing major, where he can get involved in some of the meetings. And I know it's time to see, but, some of the clubs and activities that, students are involved with their major. Going on, there's a hiking trip or something, you're involved with a group backpacking somewhere, or, take advantage of all those things. He's playing on the men's soccer team, so his fall schedule is pretty packed. So he's doing, full 15 credit hours, whatever, and then he's playing a sport at the same time. They're traveling or everything, so it's a little more difficult for him, I think, in the fall. But, my wife and I have really been pushing him to, in the spring, when you have a little more time, you're not, going to games or playing games, then you should really take advantage of some of those activities. Or just, going over to a friend's dorm or just going to, maybe there's a movie or something on campus. Just that, I think that interaction socially with other students is good. And not only students that are your major, but in other majors. And I'm just thinking back, when I went to school, one of my best friends was a music major. And he played lacrosse, but his major was not my major. So that was kind of interesting. And then, that was at Potsdam. Oh, that wasn't that. Yes. But, just get to know the people, not just the people that are in your department or that have your major. It's nice to kind of get out there and socialize with other groups.
Yeah, definitely. I had that experience in college because when I started in college, I was during COVID, so it was really hard to make friends. But when I became an RA, some of my best friends are from different majors. Like one of my best friends is a horticulture major, and then a forensics minor and psychology major. And it really helped me build as a person, and it helped inspire this project looking at different perspectives.
That's awesome.